Joe Douglas and the boys have a lot of work to do this offseason. I want to take a look at the Jets cap space and figure out how much the Jets really have to spend. Jets, Jets, Jets! Welcome in. My name's Ryan. I'll be your pilot. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. If you've been here before, welcome back. I love having you here. Boys and girls, before we hop into the video, I want to thank the sponsor of the channel, SKG Tax. The New York Jets practice and play in New Jersey. This tax season, Jet fans may struggle with their state identity. If you are a fan and can't determine how to report your income, call JR the Tax Czar and address all your multi-state tax questions. Don't go on the road to another state as a wild card filer. Hire yourself a CPA to game plan and defend your home turf. Thank you so much for sponsoring the channel. Let's hop into our topic of today. This is the Jets cap space and how much room will we really have to spend on free agents this offseason and retaining our own, all the good stuff. So that way we can make it to a Super Bowl next year with Aaron Rodgers and everything's gonna be happy and healthy and exciting, and it's not gonna turn out like the last few years have turned out. So what are we looking at? We gotta look at our starting cap space. Now, according to Over the Cap, we have about $6.6 million as our starting point. Spot Track has us at 7.5. I'm going to mathematically just use the 6.6 just to be on the safe side of things. Now, as far as some contracts that are going to be voiding, what that means is these contracts are terminating and there's cap hits that are on the books for 2024, even though these players are not under contract. And those players are Quentin Jefferson, $1.5 million against the cap. Carl Lawson, $6.3 million against the cap. Jordan Whitehead, $3.3 million against the cap, and Dwayne Brown, $4.7 million against the cap. So without these guys setting foot on the field, that's going to cost the Jets about $15.8 million. Of these four, I would say Whitehead, Lawson, and Brown are the three I'm not looking to retain. I would look to bring back Jefferson, but we're not talking about signings. We're just talking about how much cap space we're actually going to have to work with. So for now, we're just going to kind of ignore that. But man, the Carl Lawson and Dwayne Brown restructurings last year really leaves a little bit of a bitter taste in your mouth, knowing that $11 million was pushed into 2024, and these guys really had no meaningful impact on the Jets as far as on the field goes. So little rough start for us there, but one of the first questions we're going to have to go over, I want to take a look at our biggest cap hits, what we should be doing with them, and a few moves that I would make that'll get us a pretty nice chunk of change, because 6.6 sounds like we don't have any room for free agents, and that's just not realistically where it's going to go. One of the players we're going to have to discuss is CJ Mosley. There's going to be a lot of discussion here, and I think most of us would like to see him back. He's the leader of our defense, the quarterback of our defense, and a reason why there is such a good leadership group within the linebacking core, and I give him a ton of credit for developing or helping develop Quincy Williams over the course of these last 3 years. His presence has absolutely been felt on the defensive side of the ball. As far as CJ Mosley is concerned, he would be a $21.5 million cap hit against our salary cap next year. If you cut him outright, you would save $11 million. If you were to restructure him, you could save $10.5. For me, when I look at CJ Mosley, I see the leadership that's there. And I know Quincy is waiting in the wings and he's going to be that next guy up eventually. But a lot of what Quincy is able to do is because CJ Mosley does some of the other stuff, right? Like some of the things that Mosley can go by and be a heat-seeking missile, or Quincy can go by and be a heat-seeking missile, while Mosley maybe does a little bit more of the, I don't want to call it dirty work, but I want to keep him around. I think it's important to keep your leadership around, and I would align CJ Mosley's contract with that of Aaron Rodgers. And what I mean by that is I think Aaron's playing 2 more years, realistically. I do think they wind up having a good season next year, and I would push off the money. So I would say he's got $17 million guaranteed this year. I would go to CJ and I'd say, hey, look, we'll give you $20 million total over the course of the next 2 years. We're going to drop your cap hit down a good chunk of change. You can actually shift it around. Actually, you don't even necessarily have to do anything for CJ Mosley. I don't think this is even like a player restructure, if I'm not mistaken. But you could push money into a future year if you wanted to. And I would bring back CJ for the next 2 years, next year and this year. But you could drop his cap hit by about $10.5 million according to Over the Cap. So I am going to keep CJ Mosley on this team. The next question we're going to have to take a look at is LaAdrian Tomlinson. There's been a lot to be desired from the offensive line, and LaAdrian Tomlinson was one of the pieces we brought in here 2 years ago that everyone thought was going to be a staple on the offensive line, and it just hasn't worked out. He was a Pro Bowler when we brought him in, and for whatever reason, whether it's the people alongside of him, it just has not worked out. He's a heavy cap hit this year, $18.8 million. If you cut him, you save $8.1. If he's a post-June 1st cut, it would save you $13 million. So for me, when I look at our offensive line, I'm seeing a bunch of injured bodies across the field. The only player that has really been stable on the offensive line the last 2 seasons is LaAdrian Tomlinson. And I think you might want to hold on to him from a health perspective. Get into training camp and see where you kind of stand as far as, are you going to have the healthy pieces you need on the offensive line? Were you able to attract the free agents you needed? Were you able to draft the guys you needed to draft? I would hold on to him. I think he's at the very least a good benchmark for what you want your guard to be, and take him into training camp. Let someone beat him out. Let a rookie beat him out. Let a vet beat him out, something along those lines. And then I would cut him post June 1st and save the $13 million. I don't think it's necessarily worth having him out on the field right now. It's such a high cap hit when that money could be spent elsewhere. I think you could get the same level of production out of a cheaper offensive lineman. So I would cut LaAdrian Tomlinson here. I think that would be the move I would do, but I would do it post June 1st designation. The next player we got to talk about is John Franklin Myers. This is an interesting one for me because I like John Franklin Myers a lot. He's kind of gotten a little bit of shade thrown his way since he signed his new contract a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, whatever it was. And it felt like he was like not getting the sack numbers and he was sort of disappearing. But that's not really what's going on. He's doing a lot of the dirty work and the cleanup stuff where he's taking on double teams, freeing up other guys. I really like the versatility that JFM provides to the New York Jets. His cap hit's going to be $16.4 million this year. If you cut him, you save $7.3. You could restructure him and make it $9.2 million. Now, you could trade him if you wanted to. Maybe there's a situation where you're saying, hey, we can hold on to a Bryce Huff. If you remove John Franklin Myers from the equation, maybe you get a second-round pick that way or some type of draft pick for John Franklin Myers and decide to keep Bryce Huff with the money you save from JFM. I don't know if that's necessarily a route I see them going. I would restructure JFM and I would align his contract similarly to Mosley to the next few years of Aaron Rodgers. Next up, I want to talk DJ Reed coming in at $15.6 million against the salary cap. If he's cut or traded, would save you $6.3 million. And if you restructure him, it would cost you $7 million. You bring him back. Now, he's still young. He's only, I think it's 28 years old is how old Reed is right now. And he has outperformed his contract. This is one of the few people that the Jets actually sign as a free agent and works out for the better for all of us. So DJ Reed, I don't want to see him go anywhere. There was a story put out by Rich Cimini saying that Michael Carter II or DJ Reed could be traded in a way that would allow you to recoup salary cap space, get a draft pick, things of that nature. I don't want to do that. I would be very upset if the Jets moved on from DJ Reed. I would actually restructure him. I would save the money and I would keep him and Sauce together for the foreseeable future. Hopefully after next season, you can figure out what to do with Michael Carter as well. But I would not move on from DJ Reed. I think he is a staple for this defense. Next player up, we're talking CJ Uzomah, tight end. $11.2 million against salary cap. If you cut or trade him, it would be a savings of $5.3 million. I think CJ is probably as good as gone. I would think he is going to be a cut. I would make this move. Look, injury, I shouldn't say injuries. It was penalties. It was miscues during play early on. We saw his playing time start to get whittled back. I don't think CJ is going to be on this team for next year. And I'd like to see Ruckert get some more snaps. I would like to see Conlin obviously get the lion's share of targets from the tight end position. So I think they go a little bit cheaper here, and I think Uzomah's probably on his way out the door. Next up, and I guess finally, sort of, for the most part, Tyler Conlin is a $9.3 million cap hit. You could cut him, save $5 million, or you could restructure and save $3.9 million. So I really like how Conlin developed in this offense last year. I think he's going to have a good year this year, and I would align his contract similarly to John Franklin Myers and CJ Mosley and DJ Reed to align with an Aaron Rodgers plan of 2 years. And the worst case scenario for me is that he's at least a weapon for the quarterback that's here beyond Aaron Rodgers if things go to shit next year, or at least the cap continues to go up. So at least, you know, if you cut him after next year, you're still not like locked into the following year after that. But I would keep him around. I think Conklin's a good player. This is a really good blossoming player that's going to show out that much more with good quarterback play. So I would save the $3.9 million and I would keep Tyler Conlin. I think that would be the right move here. Then you got a few players that you could take a look at the end of the day, and there's a few minimal cuts that you can make. Tay Hayes, Malik Taylor, Nick Bawden, Bruce Hector all save about $1 million against the salary cap. I think I would probably move on from them. You could sign vet minimum guys to fulfill out that portion of the roster. Now, as it stands, the Jets would have $61 million in cap space in 2024. 2025, you'd have $100 million, and then you'd have 145 and 268 because we don't have many people under contract that far out into the future. But it's pretty solid because the Jets would have 57 players under contract with this particular move. The Jets have, I think it's what, 5 draft picks, I think. We don't have a second round pick, and we don't have a 5th round pick, if I'm not mistaken. So $61 million. You do have to sign your rookie draft class. So there is going to be a portion of that. It costs $10 million, but when you offset certain contracts that are on the back end of the roster, it's really going to cost the Jets a little under $5 million to sign their full draft class. So you're looking at about $56 million of usable space if you're the New York Jets heading into free agency. I think that's enough to get yourself a starting tackle. I think that's enough to get yourself a starting wide receiver, and high caliber ones at that. Or you can go maybe a little bit cheaper, fill out depth across maybe the offensive line, get maybe 2 weapons in free agency. I want to go big game hunting personally. I think it'd be really cool to get, one starter on the offensive line, whether it be right tackle, left tackle. I kind of don't care at this point. I would take either one that gives us the healthiest chance of competing and having a consistent line next year. And then I would go after a wide receiver, and I go big game hunting there too. I would go out and get the best one you can get. If you can get a Mike Evans or a T. Higgins, bring them in, load up the offense for Aaron Rodgers. Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What would you do with these particular players? What would you do with $56 million worth of cap space? Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, go Jets.